Hi, everyone. My name is Kimberly Simon. I am the VP of Partnerships and Alliances here at ControlCase. I'm excited to be doing this. We have these monthly compliance exchange webinars. The idea is that MSPs join, we talk, we discuss things, we ask questions, and basically support each other to grow in the compliance industry. You might have read something that the rest of us have not, or we may know something that you don't know yet. So this is just supposed to be a space to share information. I'm excited today because on the whim, I have two panelists. So I have Ed Poirier from Sagacent. Ed, how are you?
Fantastic.
And then I have Richard Ainsworth from Integrated Business Solutions. Thank you, Richard. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you.
What a way to start the year. So we're going to make this as interactive as we want. Think of it as you guys and me are just having a discussion, really. So let's frame it that way. So as I said, today we'll be talking about how to accelerate your revenue with cybersecurity audit. And maybe before I start, I wanted to hear from both of you. Maybe let's start with you, Richard, on how you see cybersecurity audit playing a part, whether for other MSPs or for their clients. How are you guys as a business looking at cybersecurity audit?
Well, we're looking at it as it's something that's fairly new that we're looking at offering. We've been in the MSP space for a few years now, but cybersecurity has definitely become more prevalent in the forefront, especially with the ramping up of just businesses being attacked, especially SMB businesses. And so we're looking at this as we have to participate in this and make it part of our practice, and not just a set of tools, but something that we are offering our clients as a practice, as a holistic practice. Yep.
And what do you think are some of the because I know you MSPs have known that this has been coming up for a while. It's just that adoption in some cases has been slow. So what do you think, Ed, has been a reason why MSPs have kind of been on this uphill battle when it comes to cybersecurity audit?
I think, quite honestly, most IT people are amateurs. I mean, they're hobbyists. They learned about technology because we loved it. I'm no exception. I don't know how this became my profession. I just liked playing with computers. And eventually I'm going, you know what, if everybody wants me to fix things, I should get paid for it. But something's happened in the last 5, 6, 7 years. All of a sudden, the board and the CXOs of companies have woken up. Gee, there are people who care about this stuff. I'm not going to be able to get business insurance. My customers are going to walk away if I can't demonstrate I'm doing things right. Or I'm in an industry that's heavily regulated and I've got to do this differently. And suddenly there's this awareness, it's like a light bulb went on in the room, and they're going, I need an IT provider who understands this and can help me with this.
I feel like you've done the whole presentation now because I feel like I'm just going to be echoing what you just said for the rest of the 20 minutes. But yeah, exactly. I think it's now become a case of not if you need to worry about this or do something about this, it's when. And it's already come up for a lot of people. So what I'll do maybe is just kind of demystify the difference between security and compliance. Just for all those who do not know, we're looking at cybersecurity compliance. So compliance is basically demonstrating that you conform to a given set of standards or requirements. So at the core of compliance, we're really looking at security, which looks at reducing risk. And then we're looking at privacy, which makes sure that you're keeping to the rules of people's rights to how you control their information. So as you collect information, what you do with it, people have rights, and privacy is the thing. Actually, a lot of these privacy frameworks and a lot of these privacy standards come with fines if you don't follow them. So most countries now are coming up with their own privacy policies. So depending on where you are, you do need to pay attention to privacy and security. So compliance basically looks at security and privacy. And going forward, when I say compliance, I am going to be meaning a third-party assessment. So while you can do a self-assessment, it's still the same people who did the work marking their own homework. When we're discussing compliance in this context, we're talking about having an audit done. So getting a third-party assessor, such as ControlCase, to actually come in and assess that what you're doing meets or conforms with a set of requirements. So the difference between security and compliance, I would say, is this. Security is everything that you're doing as an MSP, as an MSSP, the controls that you're putting in place to protect your customers, and also, to be able to recover in case of a security event. So that is what you're doing from a security perspective. It is the act of doing. When you think of compliance, think of it as a way of assessing what you're doing against a set of best practices. So those we can help you kind of go through which ones are applicable to you, which ones are applicable to your customers, and guide you towards that. Because at the core of it, remember, it all comes down to data. You're trying to protect data. So now when we talk about compliance, we're looking at the gaps in your security program. So what you've done, is there something that is missing? So now that helps you lower your risk. And then obviously it helps you increase your confidence that things are being done, the confidence of your customers, your board, and all of that good stuff. So really compliance helps you identify, helps you demonstrate due care. The goal really should be to move from a culture of fear and uncertainty. So I always say, if you are kind of sitting there crossing your fingers, or your clients are sitting there crossing their fingers, and they have no idea what's going on in terms of what controls are in place, where are we from a security perspective, then they're living in a culture of fear and uncertainty, and they need to get out of there quick. So when they start to talk to you and say, hey, what do we have in place? Do we need to implement these things? And doing security. So security, remember, is the act of doing. So it's what you're doing, what you're implementing. Now you're living in a culture of awareness, because you're doing the research of, hey, this is the data we need to protect. This is where it is. Who has access to it? And they need to have access to it. And then you're starting to look at that. Now that's awareness. When you bring in a third party such as ControlCase to now come in and point out if there's any gaps and make sure that you're compliant with a framework or a standard, now you're living in a culture of measurement. And that's where you really want to get to with anything that you do. You want to get to a point where you've done it, but then you've also measured how effective it is. So during a compliance assessment, we're really identifying people, critical processes, and technology, and making sure that you conform to the given set of frameworks or requirements that you want to conform with. Ed brought this up a little bit. So Ed has already kind of talked through my research here, where we have found that at least 70% of company spending going forward is towards cybersecurity and compliance. A lot of companies pay a lot of money for audits. Is that what you guys have found? Richard, maybe I'll come back to you. When you've spoken to peers or customers, are you finding that they are doing a better job of allocating budgets for compliance?
Again, that's something that we're just getting into the space. So yeah, that's not something that we've seen it, just because we haven't been asking those questions.
So now it is about going out there and having those discussions. I know a couple of the MSPs that we work with here at ControlCase that lead these conversations, where they talk to their customers and they say, listen, we can't afford for anything to go wrong with you because it's going to affect us. So we need to
challenge.
Yes.
What you say in that first box is absolutely true, but finding the individual at the company who's thinking that way, that's the challenge. Because if you find a CXO level individual and they understand how critical cybersecurity is to their business continuing on as an engaging organization, they're going to care, and that will certainly drive spending. But I think we've got to walk the talk. We've got to drive awareness about how critical this is, and find those businesses that frankly, could be converted from clueless today to understanding the need tomorrow and needing these services. But we've also got to figure out on the other side of the coin, how do we find those individuals who are aware of the need and that we can help? Because both are out there. Drive awareness, one, and then two, make the connections with the people who already are aware, but they're usually not looking, frankly, MSPs. They're looking at specialists, and those MSPs that rise to the top because they're offering these things have great new opportunities.
Right. And the ones that I've seen that get these opportunities share a lot of education around it. So they're almost known for it.
Yes.
Because they drive the discussion instead of waiting for the customer to come in and ask them.
I would be posting, and I do, try to post thought-leading articles about this every week, try to offer to speak to business groups. It's not that hard to be seen as a thought leader in this area, and then pretty soon your friends and the attendees are doing the work of introducing you to those people who are looking for these solutions.
Correct. And then another thing that we hope we can help you with is, as you start having these discussions with your customers, what you're saying is you already have a partnership with an auditor, and they're obviously able to get a lot more out of us because of our partnership with you. So
absolutely. And there's two kinds of audits. There are going to be the organizations that don't mind that we are involved in the audits, and then there are the organizations that want us to have a third party do it. They don't want us to do it. And the reason I'm involved with you folks is because you can help in both realms.
Correct. Yeah, we certainly want to guide you either way. And even for the ones that we're doing the audit, we still needs the customers need support for this. They don't understand it, and they don't want to do it. They don't want to do it. So whenever they have their MSP who understands it and can help them with evidence collection and closing any gaps that we find, it just goes a lot smoother. So there's that. And then I don't know if you guys have heard any horror stories of insurance companies refusing to pay because the companies that had data breaches could not prove they had done their due diligence. So, have you heard of any stories? I know quite a few where the insurance company just refused to pay.
Well, I've read a number of cases where that has happened. I haven't seen one myself, but I am seeing regularly companies that are being denied insurance until they can show that they're doing the right things. And they're not a bad investment for the insurance company.
Yeah, I actually have an MSP I spoke to last week, and he was telling me there's a company that now, they paid, the insurance paid up after the breach, but they refused to renew with them. They just didn't want to work with them anymore. So all of this. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I said that's common.
Which makes life very difficult. Yeah. And then another thing we found from IBM research, when remote work is a factor, and a lot of our customers have remote workers. So when remote work is a factor, the average cost of a data breach is over $170,000 higher. So it ends up just costing more because of the risk that is involved with remote work. So as you talk to your customers, what is the cost of not doing this? So what is the cost of ignoring this? So this is some data that we have found that you feel free to share. But at the bottom of this, I also wanted to bring up that as much as we're talking about doing cybersecurity compliance for your customers, it's so important for the MSPs themselves to pursue their own compliance audits, because you have to practice what you're preaching, essentially. And technology service businesses are among the most targeted by cyber criminals. So, as you go out there and have the conversations with your customers, it's a lot more powerful if you're reaching out and you've gone through an audit yourself. You know what to expect because you've had to do it, and your team knows what to expect because they've had to do it. So they're just in a better position to support customers. Any comments on the cost of not doing this? And please, if there's any ideas on the conversations that you've had with your customers, and how you've been able to get buy-in for them to pursue cybersecurity compliance, or would you mind sharing with the rest of us?
So I disagree a little bit with this slide, particularly in the SMB market. It's not a cost problem. It's a continuance problem. Most SMBs that we get called in after they were breached and they were under the care of some other MSP, it's not can they even afford for all of this, but they may not be an ongoing concern. They may be out of business. It's a business ending event. And I'm always going, hey, if it was only the cost, that would be bad. But if the business is completely gone, that's catastrophic. And yeah, and that it's much bigger than just the cost.
It really is. Yeah. A lot of companies, don't make it after a data breach. They have to close down. So is that the kind of conversations that you actually say to your customers, that this could all be over?
Well, they usually don't believe it in the beginning, but I do have those conversations. But what I'll do is I'll share stories that I've seen. I mean, one of the best ones we had about 6 years ago was a very large accounting firm here in Silicon Valley that got breached. The bad guys were in there for several months. No one noticed. And instead of encrypting the system with ransomware, what they did is they copied all the client data. And then they sent them a list of the data they had and said, pay us or else. Well, they were advised not to pay, so they didn't. And the hackers, because they had all the client data, then went to each client individually and showed them the data that they had and said, pay us or else. And you can imagine that the owner of this firm was ready to retire in a year or two. And as a result of this, she said, if we're able to continue, I'm going to have to put off retirement for at least 10 more years. Because they lost so many big accounts. As a result, they lost confidence. And everything we have is confidence and reputation. You know, like right. I always, it just the cost is survivable. But if you lose your reputation, think of a law firm, a medical firm, or something like that. I had a medical firm just last May that ended up on the wall of shame because they were hacked. And we had talked to them before they were hacked, and they didn't want to get this addressed. Now, after they're hacked, now they need a compliance audit to make sure that they can continue in the medical field.
Sorry, Richard, go ahead.
No, I was going to concur with that. And it also just to resonate what Ed was saying, not only is it financial cost, but reputation that's a huge hit as well. If your reputation is soiled because of, a breach, that's a lasting effect.
It really is. Yeah. It ruins everything. So, agree with you guys. Let's, you gotta keep having the conversations, and wherever we can, we will actually share as much as we can. We have a lot of information. We have a lot of data sheets and stuff that we share here at ControlCase. So I'll make sure that you guys get that. Make sure you're part of our mailing list. But if you're on this webinar, you're a part of that. So don't worry. What I wanted to end by doing is just at least then going through what ControlCase does. I know we only have a few minutes here, but ControlCase is an assessor company. We're a company of over 400. We're a global company headquartered out of the Washington, D.C. area. Over 10,000 IT security certifications in our time, and over 1,000 clients globally. We have an amazing portal called SkyCam Compliance Hub. And the idea behind Compliance Hub is that we can automate some of the evidence collection for an audit. But then beyond that, there's great reporting that can help you. And we're fully integrated with ConnectWise Manage. So you can go through an entire audit without ever leaving ConnectWise Manage. If you'd like a demo, please get my details and let's schedule that and get that done. But you can go through a demo you can go through an audit without ever leaving ConnectWise Manage. The way it works is everything that needs to be done as part of the audit is turned into tickets. So it's easier as you track tickets because that's how you're used to working anyway. And then it's easier for billing for your customers and tracking hours on what needs to be done as part of the audit. As you already know, we're very focused on partnerships. We want to make sure that our MSPs are supported and they're supporting their customers as well. We work with some great brands that you know of, so you are in good hands. Here are some of the companies that we work with all over the globe. And then finally, One Audit. ControlCase has a solution called One Audit. The idea behind One Audit is that we've mapped the requirements of all these frameworks across each other. So if you needed SOC 2 Type 2 and HIPAA, for example, instead of going through 2 separate audits and basically spending your entire year going through audit, we would do one assessment, and at the end of it, you get your SOC 2 Type 2 attestation of compliance and your HIPAA audit report. So you would go through one assessment and get 2 deliverables at the end. There is no duplication of effort. So if you provide a piece of evidence and it's applicable to both SOC 2 and HIPAA, you wouldn't have to submit it twice. For example, your policies remain the same, right? So you wouldn't have to submit them twice to 2 separate assessors, pay 2 separate companies to review the same information. So that's One Audit. These are some of the things that need to be done anyway to pass an audit. We can certainly support you with any of those things. But what I wanted to end with is, just as we go, Ed already touched on this, that if an MSP achieves compliance by themselves, not only are you lowering your risk, but you are increasing your competitive advantage. You are in a better position to access, tech E&O insurance, customer retention becomes a little bit easier, and your reputation. So it helps with your reputation. We actually give you a tick mark that says SOC 2 Type 2 compliant, verified by ControlCase, or whatever audit that you did. But one of the great things is if you do go through an assessment with ControlCase and you complete it, if you're managing your client's entire infrastructure, they inherit almost 30% of your evidence because you're managing their full infrastructure. So just by working with you, your customer is already 30% on their way to getting their own SOC 2 Type 2 compliance. So that's why they would want to work with you, because they inherit a lot of your controls, which is what they want. And then finally, we have referrals where, if our partners refer customers to us, then, there's a commission there. Or we can work with you where we charge the partner directly, and then they can package what they're selling with our compliance as well. Because by selling an audit, you naturally upsell most of what you offer in your security services stack anyway. Why? Amen. Because, and a lot of MSPs have not realized that by selling an audit, you naturally upsell most of your security services. Because where you've been trying to sell them one at a time or trying to convince them to do it, now they're hearing it from a third party as part of an audit. They have to do it. So what's needed to pass an audit? The same things that you offer as part of the stack that you work with from ConnectWise, where, as I said, we're fully integrated with ConnectWise. So let me stop there and see if you have any questions. We are up against the hour, but let me see if anybody has any questions. Ed, I'm going to let you go first on a last tip to your fellow MSPs. And then, Richard, I'm going to let you give your last tip to your fellow MSPs.
Well, my tip would be, we've all been there. Hey, you need this security element, and the customer's telling you, you know what, it's not in my budget, because they think it's an option. But when you're talking to clients around the realms of compliance, suddenly they find the budget. There's a reason. It's going to function correctly or not without these things. And it totally bypasses the budget. Things have gotten so much better for my company since we adopted these policies, or processes, I'll say.
Thank you for sharing that. So the conversation actually becomes easier when you mention compliance as opposed to, hey, you need to buy this.
Yeah, and one of the things we like to do is develop like a 3-year timeline with the clients. We're talking about where are we trying to go on this journey. Let's map out where we're going to do things. Okay, we're going to perform an audit here. We're going to identify the shortcomings that need to be remediated. We're going to implement these things over this time, and maybe 3 years out, we're going to do another audit. Suddenly you change your positioning. You're no longer across the table from them debating on whether they should give you money. You've moved around to the other side of the table. You're sitting with them side by side. You're looking at the paperwork and saying, how can we move your business forward? It's a different mindset. It's a trusted advisor structure. It's the way it should be.
That's powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Richard, any thoughts for your fellow peer groups here?
I think that the one thing that really stuck out to me that you mentioned was adopting that culture of measurement, which is the assessment. We all provide, services, and security, like you said, is the act of doing. But how do we know those services, and are they actually working? And the assessment is what demonstrates that.
Correct. Yeah. So there you have it. Thank you so much for your time, Richard and Ed. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
As well.
Thank you.
Take care.